Engagement. We met with the Civil Aviation, we met with the Airport Authority, we met with the Ministry of Transport yesterday. We're supposed to meet with the Ministry of Justice on tomorrow, and we'll be meeting with the LIS or project team on tomorrow also at 10 a.m. So all of these discussions are geared toward having the best mind and doing the right thing. And maybe a few weeks from now, the Deputy Commissioner for Administration, who is now acting, will communicate with all of the agencies so that we can establish a multinational negotiation team. And that team will include all of the stakeholders so that we can negotiate and argue the contract so that it can be a reflection of the whole sum. So we have much to do. We now call on Honorable Nesco A. Wallo, Deputy Commissioner General for Administration and Acting Commissioner General, for opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Port, and good morning to all. We want to say thanks to all of you for honoring this invitation. And we also want to say thanks to our partners. I know you have been having fruitful consultation across the country. We want to say thank you. Our country is at a critical point, and this time is the best time for us to strengthen our border mechanism, our border management system. In Liberia currently, at most of our borders, land borders, we observe that the immigration operations is done manually. And in the work over, people are digitizing their border system. So we want to digitize our own border system at the airport, at the land border, at the seaport, to be able to conform with international standards. I believe if an alien comes to Liberia and he or she requests for 3 months stay, and we give that legal guarantee for 3 months, and that person goes beyond the time, there must be system to alert us that, oh, Mr. Wallo came to Liberia and he requested 3 months legally, but he has gone 3 months 1 week. So we need to put our systems together. I believe that if someone purchases a plane ticket to fly through Liberia, we must get this information, because these information centers around our sovereignty, it centers around our development. And so we have called you today to come and get a glimpse of what we have, what our partners will be presenting to us. Like the coordinator rightly said, right after these consultations, we will meet with them, and we will be communicating with entities to be able to circumspecialty to this conversation, because this is a technology program. So you need people who are highly trained IT people to come and be on the team. We need financial experts, because there's a multi-million-dollar project, to come and be on the team. We need people who understand both our domestic and international laws to come and be on the team. We need people from the security sector to come and be on the team, for us to be able to have this conversation in a way that we can develop our country. And so we want to say thank you for coming. We also want to say thanks to our partners. Let us have these deliberations, but as we have these deliberations, we should understand that it centers around the sovereignty of our country, it centers around the development of our country, and it centers around the security of our country. And one of the things that pleases me a lot in these conversations is that most of the people you see this day on the board are young people. The future of Liberia we are about to build is our children's future. And so we, the parents of today Liberia's children, our sitting on the table to discuss these things shows that we are going to think Liberia, build Liberia, and think for the future of our posterity. I want to say thank you, and I wish you successful deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we will straightly go into the presentation. So we'll call on Nigel Mike to take the stage, and as we go through the deliberation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Deputy Commissioner General, colleagues from around the agencies of Liberia. I'll give my opening remarks from the dais, but what I really want to encourage from this session today is engagement, is questions. So while we'll step you through exactly what has been the culmination of those engagements over the last 18 months, what we really want to get out of this session is to provide you with even more opportunity to comprehend, to understand, to ask questions around your solution, around the solution that is being proposed to the country. Deputy Commissioner General, thank you very much for those opening remarks. This is, I think, my 6th trip into the country as part of this project. I'm fortunate to be able to say that this is, I believe, my 10th visit to Liberia. And your comments really echo exactly our interpretation, our commitment to this country, forged off the number of times that we've come in, engaged with LIS and other agencies. It resonates with SOMAPA's more global ambition to bring not just border modernisation, but the highest possible standards to any country, irrespective of the size, irrespective of the challenges. That border security is of critical importance in terms of sustaining and maintaining the sovereignty of any country. It forms a core component of our starting position with everything that we do with each country. But what we genuinely believe, and we are confident is going to be realised through this project, is that economic prosperity is forged on the back of the sustaining of that sovereignty, of the controlling, effective control of your borders, that the benefits that are realised through effective border modernisation have an impact on each and every person within the country. So before I actually start, I really do want to thank our colleagues from LIS. We're here today because of the vision of the LIS, the Commissioner General, in first inviting us to the country to detail and explain not only SOMAPA's offering, but our methodology for how we want to build and design solutions in partnership with countries like Liberia, to be able to deliver something that is truly responsive to the immediate challenges, but also forges a sustainable path for the country to ultimately realise what it wants to achieve, what its agencies want to achieve. And as you're going to see from the material that's been handed out, the one thing that I think, talking to our LIS colleagues, speaking to you all, that we are particularly proud of with this model is that it retains at the centre the officer conducting their duties in protecting the country. The technology does so much. Automation, AI, even biometric verification. These are all tools to support the officer in doing the job that they are totally committed to, and empowering them on that journey to support the country, to protect the country, and ultimately, as you said, build a future for the next generation. So thank you very much for that, sir. So, as I said, and I'm going to have to apologise to our media partners that are here today, what we really want out of this session is to be able to give you something that is engaging, that's responsive, that is ultimately reflective of the journey that we've taken over the last 18 months. What we want to be able to cover off is what has been done and really how that's actually ultimately informed the proposal that's gone before the country. What we started out looking at is what are the requirements, what are the priorities. And for Liberia, that was a really interesting experience for us, going through to Lofa County, going to Bogota, going to Gunta border points, observing, analysing the challenges that are faced not only from an operational point of view for LIS, but for partner agencies, just in terms of connectivity, power supply, and working with you and with our experts to design a solution that is not just responsive to those individual border points, but progressively builds what we refer to as multi-layered border management to give the country knowledge of who is coming, what risks they present to the country, whether that's a security, whether that's a health risk, how to facilitate genuine travellers and encourage business travellers, encourage business investment, sustain that whilst those people are in the country, retain the visibility and the control that if there are people that conduct themselves in a way that means that they should not be allowed to leave, that the agencies not only have the power to prevent them, but identify them as they're moving within the country and on their way out. What we're going to look to cover is, as Mr. Sherman said, the broader scope of the eBorder solution, the response to Commissioner General's request for immediacy in terms of a response to the critical need at the airport and what we call the Foundation Program, something that not only is very new to Somapar, but very new anywhere in the world that we're aware of in terms of a fully operational pilot to respond to a critical need. So not in a test environment, but dropping something in that is fully live and responding to the requirements of the country. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about a new initiative from Somapar, which is a digital arrival card, and how you can utilise a new set of technology to operationalise what is an old-fashioned tool to scrutinise, screen and identify people that are seeking to circumvent not only immigration processes, but customs, quarantine and ultimately health. And then we're going to look at some of those key operational and interagency benefits, particularly around this being a turnkey solution and how centralisation of command and control of that data can support the response to critical issues, unfortunately some of the ones that you've realised over just the recent weeks. And then the way forward. So firstly, the LIBERIA eBORDER solution, everyone's got a copy of the brochure. What it is a modernisation solution shaped through that agency engagement. I recognise a lot of the faces here. A number of you were at the workshops that we ran throughout last year. Some of you I've even spoken to, I believe, at border points. It is built strictly to first respond to the immediacy of the requirements of the country, but position agencies led by LIS as the primary engagement to us to be able to ultimately work the way that you want to work. It's absolutely designed to strengthen border control. That is the case. But as we refer to it, Somapar, where security meets facilitation, that facilitation of genuine travellers, people that don't present a threat or a vulnerability to the country, not only enables those genuine travellers to come, invest, spend money in the country and have an impact on economic development, but it creates the space for officers to be able to do the high-level scrutiny, the high-level interviews, elevate the jobs of the officers standing at the border from transactional, stamping passports and ultimately recording movements of people, to actually scrutinising and screening people in front of them, armed with the data, armed with the information, armed with the support of artificial intelligence to identify those that are trying to deceive. It does establish the systems, the infrastructure and the capabilities to do that, and as such it is a turnkey solution. It provides agencies with the hardware, the infrastructure and even a command centre to operationalise the information that is going to be made available to you. As you're going to hear me talk about and remind everyone, we don't see this as a Somapar solution. This is a Somapar working with LIS, working with Liberia agencies to design a Liberian-built, a Liberian-owned, ultimately, solution, a national asset, because it's governing the borders. And so, just to echo some of your comments, we like to think of a border as a national asset. And a national asset that needs to be treasured, preserved, maintained, and if achieved, it's a national asset of high value. So all of our solutions are predicated on the model of looking to do a transition of those assets to the country. If they are protecting the national asset, they should ultimately, eventually support becoming a national asset. So very, very briefly, yes, as we went through that design process, we identified a range of challenges. I think that most of these, as you're going to see on the screen, are really well known to you. You know, connection problems, access to hardware, access to the tools to do your job. But what I've looked to capture at the bottom of this screen is the key takeaway that collectively I think we all had, which is that staff and agencies are forced to operate in response to the conditions. That your visa settings, your checking of people, they're not how you want to work, they're how you're being forced to work simply by lack of infrastructure, lack of the tools. They're not set to maximise the identification of risk, the identification of risk to the country, the threats to the country. They're not established to maximise the benefit to the country. They're what you're able to do simply because you're forced into that position. So using that as the guiding light, that was how we sought to design this solution. So the objective, really briefly, was to build a solution that does not just respond to challenges, but places the officer at the centre of the modern capabilities and empowers agencies to operate the way that they want to operate. So a number of the capabilities that are actually being included within the functionality of the solutions, particularly around permit registrations, are designed to allow the country to decide over future years what permits, what type of visas, what sort of visa regime do you want to have, and how can you utilise those tools to automate, to maximise revenue creation for the country, to increase traveller facilitation, to leverage existing capabilities, existing solutions, and integrate them. If somebody's coming on one visa, how do you verify them when they go to apply for another visa whilst they're looking to stay in the country? Is it the same person? The technology exists. Putting in the framework, putting in the structures means that whether it's when we go live or whether it's 6 years into the future or 3 years into the future, that Liberia can determine the visa regimes, the tools, the settings that it wants to have. So what's been created? It's a multi-system integrated with the capability to integrate some new solutions and capabilities and systems. Traveller risk systems, so being able to identify people as well as profiles. Difference being, you know that I'm a threat to the country, you know that I match a profile that is a threat to the country. Border control systems for air and land. So the actual mechanics of how do you verify people, how do you record them, how do you capture their biometrics, how do you verify that biometrics across people that are moving backwards and forwards on a regular basis. Permit and administrative systems. One thing that I'm really excited that we're looking at with not only the wider solution, but what's going to be made available through the foundation program, providing the data to agencies to be able to use for their purposes. In Thailand, as an example, the data started out with 2 government agencies. I believe it's now at 15 government agencies. What that data is used for is dependent on what the obligation, the responsibilities of the agencies are. But being able to target attracting tourists, for example, being able to know where people are coming from, being able to know how to encourage them to spend an extra couple of days in the country maximises the revenue spend that those people have in the country. Health benefits, being able to analyse where health threats have come from, where they're going to, and most importantly through tools like interactive advanced passenger information, if there's a new health threat, prevent it from ever reaching the country. And then, as I touched on, centralising some of that capability around a command centre, a fully functioning, modern command centre where transactional day-to-day activities can be managed, but providing a communications hub, a strategic communications hub for LIS and for partner agencies to be able to respond effectively to new threats. So together, just very briefly, what we're talking about is IT solutions, capabilities that are mapped out in that brochure, interactive advanced passenger information. Not only a requirement from ICAO and the UN Security Council for countries to implement systems where they know who is coming to the country. What we're proposing is interactive advanced passenger information, which allows you to verify, screen the person at the point of embarkation and prevent them from ever reaching the country. So if they're a security threat, they never get a boarding pass, they never get on the plane, they never reach the country. If there's a new health threat on the other side of the world, and I'm looking to fly from that country to Liberia, I don't get my boarding pass. Passenger name record data, again, mandated for implementation. This is taking the information from airlines and building risk profiles of people based off everything from when they bought the ticket, where they bought the ticket. Being able to look at, somebody has said, so you mentioned somebody saying that they were coming in for 3 months. Somebody's saying that they're coming in for 9 days, but I came in with 90 kilos worth of luggage. Doesn't fit with what I'm saying. I had a justifiable reason I brought in a lot of materials. But that would be a catalyst for a well-trained, well-supported officer to not just ask me why I'm here, but ask me questions that are targeted to why am I here? If I'm carrying 90 kilos of luggage, maybe that doesn't necessarily fit with my background. Biometrics, and this is something that we're really looking forward to being able to implement. One-to-one biometric verification. So a lot of you will be familiar with biometric checking, essentially one-to-one. That means that my record is checked with the record on the system for me, from my ID. What we're actually proposing is one-to-one, so one-to-many. So I provide my biometrics at a board point, ultimately at a police station anywhere in the country that is plugged into that data. No matter what document I present, the system will verify me against all the records. This is a really critical tool for security, but working effectively and particularly working in partnership with your bordering countries, that's what will amplify the movement and the speed of people across borders. Being able to verify them simply off their biometrics speeds up the process, makes it sustainable, makes it secure, but allows people that are just doing their day-to-day business activities, moving backwards and forwards across the border, to still be able to do that. Having security doesn't mean, it means having control. Having facilitation does not mean relinquishing control. Alert and blacklist management. So this is people, not only that you are banned from the country or you're banned from leaving the country, but people that different agencies, for whatever reasons, may want to know are coming, may want to know are planning to leave. Being able to know, in most instances, at least 4 days before that the person is looking to come, for our security agencies, and I'll speak briefly around this, but knowing that a person that is either wanted or suspected is coming in 4 days' time, has then looked to board the plane. You could still deny them from ever getting on the aircraft with IAPI, but knowing 4 days ahead, knowing that they're coming, being able to track their flight, their seat, who they're travelling with in real time, and then a transformative generational leap in the way that you can manage security. Online permits, as I mentioned before, what we've constructed into the system is the capability for Liberia to decide what permits it would like to, in the future, provide to clients through an online portal. What becomes really critical, and I should have led with, I spent 20 years working in immigration, data, dashboards, analytics, being able to get the data and utilise it. There's no point in collecting it if you're not doing something with it. Whether that's, as I said, tourism, whether that's health, whether that's police, and especially for immigration and customs at that forefront of the border, for agencies like drug enforcement, being able to identify that this person has just flown from LA to Colombia, to Brazil, to South Africa, to Ethiopia, to get to Liberia, that might meet a profile that you want to actually have a conversation with. Being able to access that data, extrapolate it, utilise the AI that we can actually give you access to analyse it and build profiles so the next person that comes meeting the profile that you've already identified as a threat, or potentially a threat, 4 days in advance that they're coming. And then what we call smart border solution integration, that we recognise that there's varying stages of agency development in terms of their own systems, that they're going to want to be able to access that data, that LIS has other solutions in operation at the moment. There can be almost nothing more important than the integration of that data in a way that you as the agencies dictate and determine. So I'm often asked, and where's Mr. Sherman sitting? He knows that I presented a lot of border management conferences and things like that around the world, and often one of the first questions I'm asked is, what sort of integration should we have? Everything that you want to have. Every system should talk and be interacting, determined off how you want to work, not how you're forced to work. Oh, sorry, can I just go back? Sitting beside this and at a very high level, dedicated in-country data centres form part of the solution. If the solution itself is a national asset, a sovereign asset, then you should control the data. It's one of the key components of the solution, in the sense that everything that we're designing requires a backup. So that's not just a backup data center, that's backup generators, backup power supply on top of those generators, connectivity around utilising low orbit satellite, using fibre optic where it's available, but effectively using solutions that maintain 24/7 uptime. In fact, our service standard is 99.96% of the time uptime. Still got to do a bit of servicing at different times and maintenance, but that if you're going to have digital solutions, they need to work where they're implemented. They need to work all the time, but the data that's flowing within them needs to be remaining as a national asset. We don't access the data, we provide the capability for the data to be captured, to be stored, and most importantly to be accessed. It's a national sovereign asset. The data remains on the country. And finally, that Border Operations Command Centre, or what we would encourage LIS to identify its naming convention around that. But the way that the solution is built, the Command Centre has been envisaged in the same context, that while a lot of the day-to-day functions are for LIS and perhaps customs authorities, that it can be a national command centre however the country wants to utilize it. really briefly, how those systems work together. I don't want to get bogged down too much in this, but it comes down to integration. Being able to utilise the data that you're collecting from PNR, from visa systems, to alert you to the fact that somebody is coming and be able to notify officers that the person's on their way. To be able to scrutinise and screen them when they're actually in the country, when they're presenting a document to you, or when they're presenting biometric material that does not match what you have on record. Look, I'm mindful of the amount of time and that we had to start late, so very briefly, we'll skip through the slides because we've provided the brochures in terms of what the capabilities individually do and the benefits that they derive. I'd encourage you to have a look at that, and we'll open that up to questions as we get to here. I've already used control quite a bit, I realise. What this means for agencies. Ultimately, control. Control not only of security, not only control of data, but control of how you want to work. I will keep coming back to that. The design framework has been done in such a way as to respond today. The foundation program is testament to that, and I will come to it in a moment. But the benefit that perhaps I have, having gone through a modernisation journey when I first started with immigration and now working with a number of countries over their modernisation journey, is that as data becomes available, as tools become available, as officers are freed up from transactional activities at the border points, things that regrettably you're forced to do that don't add value, that what you can do becomes apparent. How you want to work becomes apparent. So that's why we always come back to control. Yes, there is a security focus around it, but what I would implore you to recognise is that control means being able to determine how you want to operate. Yeah. We spent a good few hours out at the airport just during the week, having a look at how to operationalise and overcome some of the connectivity and the power supply challenges. I think that those become the priorities for us simply because power supply data centres are the backbone for what will ultimately be the operational side. So as we're rolling out, we're probably looking at, to operationalise the eBorder solution is around a 6-month journey just to go live with the first range of capabilities. That brings me to the end of the eBorder overview. Do you want to open it up?
That was a
Yeah, so we now take some questions across the floor, then we can have 10-15 minutes coffee break, then we'll come to the last portion at just 10 minutes, the last one. So, questions across the board. If you have questions, concerns, or comments, yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. My attention was drawn to the dashboard and the integration. We know very well at the border, these agencies have their various functions and their responsibility. And now we are talking about integration. So, looking at the workflow, when we are talking about integration, are we taking into consideration the turnaround time in terms of integration? That's one of my questions. And the next one is that we are talking about data security in this. Because once we are talking about dashboard, we are talking about data. And data security is also a key priority when it comes to generating data. So are we looking at direction in terms of data security when we're integrating data?
Yes. Maybe I'll address that, the security around data integration first. The solution provides the backbone for the integration. the data sovereignty and the data security, both digital as well as physical, are considered within the design project and are very clearly articulated in terms of the proposals and specifically the technical proposal that's been given. But I think taking your question, the logical step, I think further forward is the integration with other data sets. Yes, that's where I mentioned in terms of want to integrate with. Okay, whether that's a live data exchange for a number of agencies is a single way data receipt. So these people are coming. I think for Liberia, as I said, we're aware that a lot of the agencies don't have the types of solutions and the types of systems that they want to have for their own data capture. Being able to position it in such a way that that backbone of integration makes it possible to establish the type of integration that you'd actually want to have. Does that? But it is an absolutely critical consideration. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, my concern, I have concern and question.
So when you ask me, you call your name. So
Okay, my name is Controller D. Union Semeni Senior, Administrative Assistant in the Office of the IG. I have a concern before the question. Because looking at the system you want to bring to Liberia, to strengthen our border system, the system cannot operate in the absence of electricity and internet coverage. And if we want to do your plan, we want to implement the SUMAPA IT system, we must do it holistically to cover the entire country. Most of our borders, land borders, have no electricity, have no internet coverage. Do you have plans to capture the entire country, especially land borders that have no electricity and internet coverage?
Yes.
How do you intend to do so?
Well, so are you talking about, would you like to go look at the specifics and the connectivity?
Yes.
So connectivity, what we anticipate, so the service proposal requires us to actually achieve that. Requires us to actually achieve that at 99.96 uptime. Okay. In terms of land borders, and particularly regional, remote land borders, we did a range of testing using low orbit satellite connectivity as the primary connection last year. In terms of talking about the foundation program and going live immediately, that's what we're anticipating utilising at the airport in the short term. In terms of power supply, it depends on which area we're talking about. Data centres will need to have ongoing, not only ongoing power supply, but backup power supply and backup on top of that. So a data centre, what we'd anticipate is that a mains power, a generator, and backup generator. But to answer your question, or I think more so answer your comment, you're absolutely right. Without solving the connectivity and the power challenges, you can put the very best technology at the border and it won't switch on. Under the service proposal, we're not only required to design over the top of those challenges, but maintain that connectivity to 99.96% of the time.
Yes, thank you. I want to say thank you for your brilliant presentation and Controller Josie and Swim. So I want to expand on the concern I was raised. I saw your brochure, you saw 30 years experience. I don't know whether that is correct. So I want to find out, you have come to operate in Liberia. With your assessment, you observe anything risk in the operation in Liberia?
Sorry, anything that
Risk operation in the Somapa?
risk to Somapa or risk to
For
the
Somapa
country?
to operate in Liberia effectively, did you observe
Bridge
it?
to Somaba.
It's a very good question, sir. Thank you. I've never actually had that's. It's a very respectful question. Yes, I think is the direct and honest answer. Yes. We are putting our name and our investment on being able to overcome the challenges that you're talking about. The service level agreement would require us to maintain that connectivity, and it's a challenging environment. So with those challenges and our investment on the line, that's what we are held to the standard of under a service level agreement. Yes, that's a risk. What I would probably say is that Somapar considers itself a service and expertise entity, not strictly an IT company. And we wouldn't be here having this conversation around doing that degree of investment, which carries with it an intrinsic risk anywhere in the world. So that those risks are present everywhere, without the confidence to be able to overcome the challenges. And most importantly, it talks to the model that we actually go through. That's why we've spent 18 months getting to this point. It's why we prioritise engaging with the country, engaging with the agencies. If we're delivering something that we're held to the standard of making work, we absolutely want to make sure that it is what is going to work for you. So part of that risk mitigation, if I can put it that way, is baked into the model that we've gone through. That I've done 6 trips here, that we've taken 18 months, that we've funded engagement sessions with agencies, partly to understand what the risk environment is for us as a commercial entity. That's the most honest answer that I can give you. But any operation in this space comes with risks. My colleague Sai travelled over from South Africa. I'm resident in South Africa. Sai came over from Thailand. The challenges of getting here, this trip, were much greater than they ever have been, simply because of the disruption to air traffic at the moment, all around the world. The costs of doing business all around the world are in a state of flux. So there are always risks, we always assess them. But what I'm really wanting to share with you is that what we believe is that our methodology, in part, allows us to understand the risk environment in such a way that when we're putting forward a proposal that we will invest in, that risk has been understood. But thank you. I really appreciate that question because I've never actually been asked it before.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Assistant Commissioner at the Health and the LRA. My questions the LRA, usually when we attend stakeholder meetings, our primary concern has always been the revenue impact. So currently the LIS has 2 revenue streams: re-entry, resident permit, and basically the visa upon arrival. So I would like to know what additional revenue stream will this project generate? And the second one is you've been, from what I've just researched, you've been existing for 30 years. Which other country have you operated apart from Thailand? And what has been your success rate?
Success rate?
Yeah. In the execution of eBORDER planning.
Okay, so just in terms of the opening up new revenue streams for LIS. I would say that the core capability within the proposal for revenue streams surrounds permit registration. When I talk about permit registration, that can be essentially any movement of people complying with the regulations of the country. Okay, so it's a bit more than just visas. It's certainly more than the visas that you have today. It's visas that you may want to use. Somebody might be able to correct me, but I don't believe you've got a work visa at the moment. It's just a resident visa. Is that correct, Shane?
We know you don't have so many here.
Sorry?
I think we have them on our board.
Okay. So, as I understand it, I'm sorry, I haven't memorised all the visa products. The example that I would use is, should Liberia actually want to move to having a work permit or a different visa regime, that mechanism exists to be able to digitise it, own the revenue stream, so not need to come to us and share, determine, change, calibrate, increase fees, change questions. That's the obvious and direct one. The one that I'll pick up from Deputy's comments, realising the revenue that you're not collecting. I think it will be the first and foremost impact. Okay, and I want this to be as respectful as I can make it. But if you don't know who's coming in and you don't know when they're going out, you don't know that they comply. Right? So you can have all the rules within the country that you like, but if you don't have a capacity to enforce those rules, I think that we can reasonably suspect that there's quite a few people that may not be complying with the rules and not paying their obligations. Whether that's taxes, whether that's getting the right visa, that's a very expensive one. Within the system, there is the capability for LIS to digitise the fee and fine collection mechanism. So if I can give you an example, because I don't want to go into specific details of how this would work, because it's up to you to determine what you would like to put online. I enter the country. I am supposed to stay for 30 days. I stay for 2 months. I didn't bother to get an extension. I go to leave. The system alerts the officer to the fact that I'm going to leave, alerts the officer to the fact that I have a fine to pay. It provides me with a digital link to pay that, and if whatever the policy settings are for the country, if 1 month overstay is just a fine, then I go onto the application, I pay the fine, the revenue goes to the consolidated revenue, and I'm allowed to depart. Consequently, if I've probably overstayed for 6 years, maybe the consequences on me are a little bit more than a transactional fine. But beyond just being able to collect those fines, being able to digitise them, maximise them, I'm going to come back to that same word around control. Being able to control who's coming in, who's coming out, and control that if there's money owed to the country, I can't bypass it. So yes, I think that there's a range of visa regime options that the country could look at and decide and explore over many years. And having that capability to control it and control the revenue that comes in is a really important component of this. But my experience would tell me that the first and biggest impact that you're going to see is increased visa compliance of people paying for the visas that they're supposed to, and increased revenue from fines because I'm not able to just skip out of the country. And then building on that, if I've come in and I haven't paid my tax, I can't leave. Yeah. So that is a very expensive question. We actually have a range of analytical material that we can actually share through LIS around direct and indirect economic benefits. I'd always rather sit down and have a longer conversation around indirect economic benefits of effective border management to a country, because it's a long and expansive and worthwhile conversation.
Let me help you. An indirect revenue that can be generated from this is it will strengthen our position to get what we call port of last call. If we manage to get port of last call, I mean there will be direct flights from the United States to Liberia and from other countries that don't come directly. Right? And you can imagine that the price of tickets for those flights will drop dramatically. I mean, instead of paying 1,600 to 1,800 to go to America, you can pay 1,000 to 1,200. Obviously, there's a revenue potential there because a lot more people will be coming and so forth. So it's indirectly can contribute to our revenue generation.
Thank you, Dr. Partner. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I'm Asiru Soni from the National Security Agency. My concern is from the intelligence aspect of your presentation. What as we are presenting capture something called what have been created. And as you have what have been created, I don't know whether it's a medium term or a long term plan that you have. Because what have been created, you talk about a border control system for air and land. I don't know whether you also take into consideration sea, because from the seaport is also very important to us. I don't know, that's my first concern. And the second one is there is a database to be established, a center to be established. Can this center be connected to other services from the intelligence end as to sharing those data? Because data itself is a high currency into the intelligence cycle. Can that be done?
So I think what I really encourage is perhaps an additional briefing to your agency. That absolutely has to happen in terms of go live and what the data can actually mean to you. Okay, and so I'm now going to go around some of the question in that context. The direct answer is yes. Connectivity, absolutely. Whether that's two-way connectivity, I think that's for you to determine. Particularly if I've bought a ticket and I'm coming to the country, making sure that data flow has actually reached you and your alert systems, or whether you require alert systems, notifying you. But in a lot of instances, I'm doing this part, as an end user, that might be a one-way data transmission to notify you that somebody's at the border, somebody is coming to the border, somebody's bought a ticket and looking to leave the country, but it would not raise an alert at anywhere else in the stream, for example at the command center. So the answer is yes to all of those questions in that regard, but I think a proper briefing would be.
How about extension to the sea?
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry. So at the moment, the proposal is for the air and for select priority land borders. Yes, is the answer. And that's just a case of expanding out connectivity, power supply, and the hardware to do it. Okay. We also do additional capabilities around advanced passenger information from ships. That's not envisaged under this initial program, but if I can put it in this context, Somerpar delivers 36 different modules of border management. No country has actually operationalised all of those. In the context of making this sustainable, both from a risk point of view, I really love the fact that we got that, as well as making it sustainable for the country. What I could say is, with a blank check, a perfect environment, I would still sit here in front of you from an expert point of view and say you do not want to try and operationalise every single one of these today. Other things are less relevant. So we do a domestic advanced passenger information capability for one country, and I think that's coming to some of the success stories. And I'm sorry I didn't actually address that. So for some countries, domestic travel within the country is not only a priority in how to manage their security, but is extensive and wide-ranging. So that's a specific solution for that country. For an island-based country, seaports would be one of the first places that we'd absolutely start. So this has really been around working with the agencies to identify what are the key priority areas for you. But no, ultimately you've got to do every single border point, digitise every single border point, and have that control at every single border point to give you control within the border. One thing that, if I can digress really quickly, African states are really looking to increase travel facilitation within member countries, right? And certainly in East Africa, they're really pushing forward with, let's say, a similar model to the EU in terms of free movement of people. What I would say from an industry expert point of view, what I believe you're going to find is ways to move the risk away from the point of the border. So verification of people moving within your country is greater assured, right? So my biometrics record might be the way that you easily verify me, number plate reading, things like that. You don't lose control. The border is a point of control, so if you're going to have free movement across that border, you just have to move the control to different places, either ahead or within the country. Does that help?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm Assistant Commissioner of Police Emmanuel Wilson. I just needed to understand data generated as a result of this modernized digital project. Who controls the data? Is it you or jointly?
No. So we don't have any access to the data. You know, that's the first, second, 15th thing that I'll always say. That's why data centers within the country as well. No, the data is a national asset. It's controlled by LIBERIA. We will certainly work with you both in terms of ready access to that data. In being an end-to-end service provider, we'll also work with you in terms of training and development over how to ultimately utilise it. How to build, we'll run training around risk profile, development of how to interdict human trafficking cases. Particularly in that first movement into being able to, I'm choosing my words carefully. I think a real shame for the agencies, certainly from what I've seen in my time coming backwards and forwards, is you don't have access to the data, right? And I go back to that original point, you're being forced to work according to what you have access to, not the way you want to work. What we're really mindful, and it's some of this transitional sustainability, the volume of data that you're going to have access to, and I can see out the corner of my eye a colleague that's very aware of the volume of data that is going to become available. That's why dashboards and analytics become really important. But to directly answer your question, it's controlled by the country. We will work with you as much as we can to utilise it.
Let me help you again.
No.
LIBERIA will have to form what we call a passenger information unit or travel information unit, which will comprise of joint security, including BIN, NIS, immigration, police, LDAA. That unit will control the information. There will be a main point where they will be working, and then there will be an alternative secondary point where there will be the database. It also has to be in collaboration, posted telecommunication because of the connectivity issues in the database that will be required to host this. This is all being discussed at a higher level at the National Civil Aviation Security Committee level. Unfortunately, I can't disclose everything that's going on there, but I'm sure all of you will be brought aware in due course. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question, but I would like for you to explain a little bit how the system will work. Part of it might answer my question, so that I don't have to ask the question. So if I'm traveling to Liberia, will the system be set up in a way that anywhere around the world, I can go in, put my information and get some feedback when I arrive at the airport, the immigration going to use, or I have to be in person to populate it, before?
As a private traveller.
Yeah. Someone traveling to Liberia.
Okay. Are we needing to take a pause for a second? How much time? Okay. There's a range of systems and capabilities within the broader solution. That's the first thing I would say. The vast majority are not what I'd call client-facing. Okay, so for the average traveller, there isn't immediate platforms for them to interact other than things like the permit registration system, right? So fees and fines, electronic visa applications, a digital arrival card, depending on what the country wants. That's the only client-facing capability within the solution. This is government-facing. So to answer your question, not really, but I'm maybe not understanding why you would want to check.
I'm asking this question because, in the interest of time,
Yeah, please.
real time, right? I think the current process with immigration, usually when you're on a flight, they give you this manual card you have to populate.
Yep.
And with this, you will not have need for that.
I tell you, maybe this is a good moment to take a break. What I'm going to show you is a digital solution that we've actually implemented in a very similar country. Right? It very much talks to your other question in terms of where does revenue come from and secondary sources of revenue for the country, and how, what I would say is your question, I think, is as though you're a Liberian citizen. The one thing that I would say to you, it's tremendous that Liberia has an e-visa already, right? If you want to increase travellers coming from around the world, they want reassurance.
Sure.
Exactly what you're talking about, yeah? I want to know that I'm going to be let in when I get there. Yeah? And to open up yourself to more and more travel, that reassurance is actually a key component. There's a range of solutions that Liberia can look to implement on the back of that permit registration system to give new travellers that reassurance, give agencies the information that they want to have, and potentially open up revenue. We might come back to that in more detail after a break, because the digital arrival card is actually one of those. And for the very reason that paper cards, a lot of countries still collect them. They perform very little benefit to the country, and they don't provide reassurance to the person coming into the country because, well, I'm assuming anyone that's travelled and been asked to fill one out, if anyone's been to Australia, we ask hundreds of questions. It's very stressful to the person, yeah. So we might come back to that in the context,
So
because
there is the last question, then we can come for a couple of break.
Sorry.
My name is Caroline Myers, technical focal point at the Ministry of Finance and Development. Thank you for your presentation. I don't know whether the second segment will look at the financials, because I'm kind of concerned. What's the total cost of the investment? What are the funding mechanisms? Then I'd also like to know what are the limitations of this solution?
What are the
limitations, the downside?
Okay. So in terms of the commercials and the cost profiles, there's something that we've shared with LIS so you touched on forming a multi-agency task force. I think that's the most appropriate place to answer those questions. Limitations yes, there are limitations. There absolutely are limitations. There's limitations in the fact that the core capability is to put the power within the officer's hands. Yes. So the officer still remains at the core of that functionality. So it is reliant in a very positive way on the officer. Are there limitations in terms of not addressing seaports? Yes. But can I ask you what type of limitations would you envisage? And allow me to address that specifically.
Well, I'm not a technical person,
Yeah.
but it's always good to anticipate what the demands are. So, for example, we are implementing a new system.
Sure.
And as the way we are implementing the system, we learn lessons. This is not what we taught. What is the unanticipated negative impacts or the anticipated negative impacts, so you prepare for them.
Yeah, that I think is a really valuable question. Certainly, the connectivity and power supply and overcoming those challenges is the starting point, right? So the system is designed around us delivering that 99.96 uptime, right? That places a significant burden on us. I wouldn't say that as a limitation. It's the construction of the capability. In terms of maybe if you look at it in terms of vulnerabilities, the immediate vulnerability is that it doesn't address seaports from day one. It doesn't address every single land border. There's a vulnerability in the fact that you don't have a border point every 50 metres around the country. So vulnerabilities rather than limitations, absolutely. But what I can tell you is that the capabilities are constructed in such a way to maximise the impact on those vulnerabilities that the country actually has. So short of actually putting a fence around the entire country and somebody building a higher and higher fence every single day, you're always going to have, to a degree, porous borders. Being able to have registration, let me give you this example. Biometrics in a lot of countries is utilised for travel facilitation, right? Verifying that you are you. In countries with porous borders, the power of biometric verification at border points is you're not in the system. Does that make sense? So a lot of the orientation in the global north around biometrics is verifying you are you. Right? For countries that struggle with porous border challenges and vulnerabilities, it's actually a little bit different. It's about, I've stopped you at a roadblock, you're not in my biometrics. Why are you not in my biometrics? You're going to have a very good reason. Right? So in terms of the construction of the capability, what I would probably prefer to look at it as is responding to vulnerabilities rather than having intrinsic limitations. Always great questions in my view. I think we might take a quick refreshment
we
break.
can have quick coffee break, maybe like 10 minutes. The last presentation is on the DAC and the foundation. That's just 15 minutes. So you can walk, walk and take